Okay, today I would like to present the 2022 Claire and Ralph Landau Student Paper Prize. This prize is for the best student-written SIEPR working paper and is a tribute to the Landaus for their countless contributions to SIEPR and to Stanford's economics department. The range of eligible topics is as broad as Ralph Landau's interests were in economics. Papers can deal with any issue involving the formulation or evaluation of economic policy, broadly defined. And this year's prize is awarded to Sebastian Otero for his paper, Affirmative Action in Centralized College Admission Systems, Evidence from Brazil. Congratulations, Sebastien, on this award. And maybe you can just give us a brief summary about your paper, and then I can ask you a question or two about it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this recognition. I'm really honored by the prize. So basically in my paper, I study affirmative action policy in higher education. And the main motivation behind studying affirmative action is that it's a very popular policy tool used around the world to reduce the extreme segregation that we observe in selected public colleges. It is actually on the rise, and today more than 25% of countries use some form of affirmative action in their university admissions. But as we know, affirmative action is also very contentious. And why is this? Well, because it gives preferential treatment to some students, but it does it at the cost of displacing other students who are allegedly more qualified because they have higher test scores. As a result, affirmative action may have the potential, for example, to reduce the overall efficiency of the higher education system. And even when there is support for policies to help students from underrepresented backgrounds, there is a question of whether affirmative action is an effective means to do so. And why? Well, affirmative action may place targeted students in degree programs that they might not be prepared or ready to attend, and hence it sets them up for failure. This is what's called the mismatch hypothesis. So basically in my paper, I study how much benefited students win and how much displaced students lose as a result of affirmative action policy. So basically, to study this question, I leveraged a very large-scale affirmative action policy that was passed in Brazil that mandated all federal universities to reserve 50% of their admission spots for students from underrepresented backgrounds. So just to give you context, this is probably the second largest affirmative action policy ever implemented in the world. So let me highlight two challenges that we have when we want to evaluate the effects of affirmative action. The first one is a counterfactual degree program challenge, or in other words, we don't really know the degree programs that students would attend in the absence of affirmative action. So for example, in the data, we observe that someone who is targeted attends a medicine degree program, but we have no idea the degree program that that same person would attend in the absence of affirmative action. The second challenge is that we face a returns estimation problem, or in other words, we don't really know how much students would benefit from attending these different degree programs. Okay, so what do I do in order to overcome these two challenges? Well, first, in order to understand the degree programs that students would attend with and without affirmative action, I leveraged the rules from a centralized admission system in Brazil, where if we know student preferences, we can assign them to different degree programs when we change the different admission rules. So that solves the first part of the problem. In order to understand the different returns to attend these different degree programs, basically I leverage two different sources of variation. The first one are degree-specific admission cutoffs. So basically every degree program in Brazil has a different admission cutoff, and I can compare individuals who are just above the cutoff to individuals who are just below the cutoff, and that allows me to estimate the causal effect of attending a given degree program. The second source of variation, and this is very specific to Brazil, is that students, when they take the national test, they're assigned randomly to a given grader. These graders, they have different degrees of leniencies, and hence some are assigned to very lenient and nice graders, and some of the others are assigned to some harsher graders. So as a result, I have random variation in test scores of students, which allows me to estimate the causal effect of attending these different degree programs, not only for individuals at the margin of admission, but also for individuals away from the margin of admission. Basically, then in my paper, I put all these different this difference together in a model, which allows me to estimate the effects of changing the affirmative action policy, say having 50% versus having 0% affirmative action in student outcomes. I have a series of different outcomes: the completion, degree persistence, predicted income, and so on.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sebastian. And can you talk a little bit, it's super interesting, and obviously the results take on even more significance when you consider just Brazil's sheer size. It's a huge country in terms of population, about 2/3 the size of the US, over 200 million residents of Brazil. Can you just tell us a little bit about whether and to what extent the results from your research and research that you hope to do in the future can inform policymakers, either in Brazil or more generally, even outside of Brazil?
Well, thank you for the question. So let me highlight three key policy takeaways that I think are true in Brazil, but I can also shed light on policy not only in Brazil, but also in other parts of the world. The first thing is that I don't find evidence at all of mismatch. I do find that the marginally benefited targeted students by affirmative action, they actually benefit from attending better degree programs. And this is true as measured by degree persistence, completion, predicted income, and so on. So I don't find any evidence of mismatch, at least in the case of Brazil, and that can also be true in different contexts. The second finding, which I also think can inform policy, is that marginally displaced students actually experience losses that are smaller than the gains of benefited students. So individuals who are displaced, they do suffer a loss, but this loss is smaller than the gains of benefited students. And why is this? This is because their fallback option, or their outside option, actually is pretty good. When they are displaced from these very selective public institutions, they simply go to equally good private institutions, which have similar returns to the degree programs from where they were displaced. And finally, when we put all these things together, we find that basically affirmative action have the potential to increase the equity of the system, can make the system less segregated, and it doesn't have to be at the cost of reducing efficiency. So that, again, can shed light on whether affirmative action can increase equity without reducing the overall efficiency.
Sebastian, thanks so much for sharing that. And as many who are watching this will know, many SIEPR researchers do focus their research attention on the education sector. So this is like a welcome addition to the arsenal of research that we've produced over the years at SIEPR. I guess one final little question. You said this was the second biggest sort of affirmative action in history, affirmative action move in history. What was the biggest?
So there's different series of affirmative action policy in India. And when you compare the scale of things in India, that's actually way bigger than Brazil. So that's why I say I think probably the second largest, because India has different pockets of affirmative action in different states. I've actually tried to research on the magnitude of those different programs. I haven't been able to find very precise numbers, and that's why I think it's accurate to say it's the second largest, but I'm not exactly true if it's the largest. Could be the largest, but I'm not exactly sure about that.
Well, India is pretty high on population. Brazil's high, but India is really high on population.
Pretty
so
high, exactly.
In any case, but yeah, thank you so much for this, and we're really proud to be honoring you, and so happy that SIEPR was able to perhaps play a small role in your success while at Stanford. And congratulations on your upcoming appointments. I guess you'll be going to UC Berkeley for a postdoc, if I understand correctly, and then on to Columbia University's Graduate School of Business. So we hope that you'll remember us here at SIEPR in the future when you become a big shot professor and informing policymakers in Brazil and around the world. And thank you again for sharing the insights of your research with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I really want to acknowledge all the help that I got from SIEPR throughout the years. I don't think I would have done it without their help. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Sebastian. Congratulations again.